Well, this was a Tango Atüde by Astor Piazolo, played by the Munich oboist Miriam Hanika, with which we want to start the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. 76 years ago to the day, the Red Army freed the concentration and termination camp Auschwitz-Birkenau, and this memorable day shall always be remembered, as it was the prelude to the Allies' victory to overcome the criminal system of the Nazis. And on this day, we would also like to remember and think about Waldram, formerly known as Vöhrenwald, as it has a special connection to the Holocaust. Here in Waldram, or Vöhrenwald as it was called then, the remnants of the saved Jewish people has congregated after World War II. Here, these people who had lost everything, their homes, their possessions, their friends, and often their entire families, congregated here and started a new life here all over again. And this is the reason why we, the people living in Waldram today, have a very particular obligation to bring the International Holocaust Remembrance Day into the people's focus once more. Corona has, of course, brought much confusion and disturbance. The pandemic has changed much in people's lives. However, we felt we could not cancel the need to remember. Hence, we looked for a possibility to find the right profile that would, on one hand, enable us to do our remembrance, that would do the victims of the Holocaust justice, but would, on the other hand, be consistent with the hygiene rules. When a friend of mine gave me such a poppy as a Christmas present, the spontaneous idea developed to erect a field of these remembrance flowers around the building of the Badehaus. And it is wonderful that the artist, the creator of this installation, which in the meantime has found worldwide acclaim, which had initially been put up on Königsplatz in Munich in 2018, has reacted equally spontaneously to this spontaneous idea and has agreed to come to us with his creation. In the last few days, Dr. Walter Kuhn, together with our volunteers, has erected in snow and cold weather this field of remembrance flowers around our Badehaus. And I would like to say a big thank you to you that you have supported our remembrance work with your art. Well, later on you will give a talk about your work, how it came about and what message lies behind it. But already I would like to welcome you. Also, a big welcome goes to the representative of the Bavarian government with the long title of a representative for Jewish life against anti-Semitism, for remembrance work and for historical heritage. Former Minister of State, Mr. Dr. Ludwig Spaenle. We are very happy that it is your second visit to the Badehaus. The first visit was to commemorate Max Mannheimer's 100th birthday, and now you have come back, and I would like to warmly ask you to say a few words. Dear Dr. Krafft, dear Dr. Kuhn, ladies and gentlemen, they did know about the incredible dimension of their guilt, the murderers of Auschwitz. When you examine the hectic efforts of the last days before the arrival of the Red Army, then you can notice there were acts of covering one's tracks, obliterating and hiding the evidence. And there was the last act of madness. People who had survived the camps until then, for whatever reasons, were sent on death marches. Yes, they did know about the incredible dimension of their guilt. This is the first message of today's Remembrance Day. Secondly, 25 years have passed since the former Bundespräsident Roman Herzog has reminded us of this historical date and has thereby managed that people worldwide remember one of the biggest crimes of humanity. On this day, we must try to understand the dimension of it. Why? Because it was total madness based on purely ideological reasons, which forced people into industrial mass murder on the basis of nothing but technical criteria. If you want to see the insanity of this regime, note this detail. The trains to the termination camps had the right to use the railroad tracks in all of Europe before the provision trains for the soldiers on the East Front were allowed to use them. Just that you can understand the dimension of this ideological lunacy which this political system was driven by. This is the reason why this day is so important. Yet there's another second reason. It has to do with this installation and initiatives like this one here in the BADEHAUS in Waldram. It is about the people who lost their lives due to the already named ideological reasons and whose murderers had the intention to wipe out their memory of the face of human consciousness. This is the individual person as well as the whole group of people identified on the basis of this ideological madness. The Jews, the Sinti and the Romas, to name but a few, that are connected to Auschwitz. It is about counteracting this strategic madness by bringing these people back into our consciousness. Every single one, though the collective number is so overwhelming as it is almost impossible to comprehend the dimensions of this terror. Why is this location so interesting and why does it provide this incredible suspense, especially with this impressive installation that almost gives you a shiver? Like the people of Munich and its visitors, I was able to see the installation in the context of the Königsplatz and the thought that every flower stands for a victim, of course only as a symbol. I could start to understand what this means in numbers and in perception. Thanks to the artist, we remember that in this location there was hope and a possible future for those who had survived the madness. We can think of the victims in a dramatic way. You can't really put the function of the 27th of January in any other way. To remember, to stand as a warning also for the future, that we have the duty to safeguard humaneness and the dignity of man under all circumstances. This is, in my opinion, the message of the 27th of January. Perhaps you had the chance to watch the Hour of Remembrance this morning in the Bundestag, where the President, Mrs. Dr. Knoblauch, spoke, and Mrs. Weisband, a young lady from a family which came to Germany from the Ukraine. Especially Mrs. Knoblauch, with her vita, pronounced that it is the political challenge to ensure these ideologies will never take over day-to-day politics again. This is the message of today, which points to the future. And I can't think of a better place to show this tension than the Badehaus in Waldram. Therefore, my gratitude goes to Mrs. Krafft. Of course, I have also been here privately to enjoy the exhibition. Also to mention is the illustrated book about the former inhabitants, and now the installation by Dr. Kuhn. It is a gripping thought. You can feel the tension in this location. Thank you very much.
Auf Flanders Feldern blüht der Mohn, zwischen den Kreuzen, Reihe um Reihe, die unseren Platz markieren. Und am Himmel fliegen die Lerchen, noch immer tapfer singend, unten zwischen den Kanonen kaum gehört. Wir sind die Toten. Vor wenigen Tagen noch lebten wir, füllten den Morgen und sahen den leuchtenden Sonnenuntergang, liebten und wurden geliebt, und nun liegen wir auf Flanders Feldern.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, 76 years ago, to the day, Auschwitz concentration camp was liberated by Soviet troops. I would feel honored if, on today's anniversary of this momentous event, my poppies could serve as a symbol of remembrance and as a reminder. As a reminder that such terrible crimes as those committed by the Nazis may never happen again. The Badehaus and the former settlement of Föhrenwald are a worthy setting for such remembrance, a place where a modest attempt of reparation was made, where many thousands of Holocaust survivors, the remnant of the saved, as they sometimes call themselves, were aided in their attempts to start a new life. As far as the symbolism of memorial flowers, for example that of poppies, is concerned, it is a fairly new thing. It has developed here in Bavaria quite recently in the last few years, after I had erected around 3,500 such flowers covering Munich's Königsplatz. Pictures of this sea of poppies went around the world and served as a gesture of reconciliation. This event took place on November the 11th, 2018, exactly 100 years after the end of the First World War. The flowers, which originally were a sign of remembrance for the fallen British soldiers of the Commonwealth in World War I, now stood as a memory for all the victims of this and all other wars in our country and elsewhere in the world.
Nicht nur als Erinnerung an die Helden des englischen Commonwealths eben aufzustellen.
In addition, they served as a potent and resolute demand to all powers of this world to lay down their weapons and disarm, and to instead work towards peaceful solutions to the world's conflicts.
Lösung von Konflikten zu arbeiten.
Since then, the flowers stand in memory of all the victims the fascist Nazi regime and the Holocaust are responsible for. This goal I have in common with the Badehaus, one we both pursue with great commitment. In addition to the successful permanent exhibition in the museum, the recent project of the house is a great achievement, in my opinion, as live pictures of the first residents of the Jewish DP camp are being displayed and brought to life with the help of oral history. An invaluable document relating to the early post-war history has been created literally at the last minute. This documentation can also serve as a warning to remind us to treat today's refugees and displaced persons in a humane way.
Das übrigens auch als eine Mahnung für den menschlichen Umgang mit heutigen Geflüchteten und Vertriebenen dienen kann.
I was very pleased to hear that here are plans to complete the commemorative work of this place and its inhabitants. This will certainly also involve recapitulating the circumstances under which the Jewish population living in Föhrenwald at the time was forced to leave the settlement again in the mid-1950s, after the site was acquired by the Catholic Church. There is a monument of Adolf Kolping here on the square. It certainly reflects the admiration owed to this outstanding person who had, as a man of the church, dealt with the social question already 100 years prior to the events mentioned above, and had tried to counteract social inequalities.
Und dabei versucht hat, soziale Missstände zu lösen.
The housing of expellees was, in its own right, a gigantic task one which the Church did not shy away from and from which much benefit was generated. But from a today's point of view, it is difficult to understand why the remnants of the Jewish residents who were at times still living here were deprived of their new homes after all they had suffered and endured. Homes they had been given not that long ago, taken from them for the reasons of helping other people. Instead of denominational separation, Föhrenwald or Waldraum could perhaps have become a place where different religions could have lived together in harmony. Instead of converting the Jewish prayer house from the shtetl of the immediate post-war period into a church, surely an extra place for Christian worship could have been found elsewhere. And perhaps today there might even have been a small mosque to go alongside it, long before this would have been possible in almost neighbouring Penzberg. One day, so my dream, one could even be able to share the places of religious gathering. The thoughts of ecumenism and mutual tolerance were, admittedly, not so widespread in the 1950s. But today, in times of new anti-Semitism, racism and increasing xenophobia, as well as the resurgent National Socialist machinations in Germany and elsewhere, this would be all the more important. Finally, I would like to express my respect and gratitude to you, dear Dr. Krafft, and all your staff for the great commitment you have shown to the Badehaus, and especially so for your support in the realization of this memorial flower meadow. Many thanks as well to all my helpers, Mrs. Justine Bittner, to Jonathan and Josef Coenen, to André, Mitschke, as well as to the wonderful Mr. Wolfgang Saal. And also from my side, a great thank you to Dr. Ludwig Spaenle, the representative of the Bavarian state government against anti-Semitism, whom I wish a lot of success for this important task, as well as for his commitment to the persecutees of the Nazi regime, as well as their descendants, and the very determined fight against racism and neo-fascism. Thank you very much.
Herzlichen Dank Ihnen allen und ich hoffe, Sie können das Badehaus auch bald wieder von innen besichtigen.
In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders Fields.